So I'm going to open the meeting formally. I think we're all here. I'll open this meeting and call the work session of the Eugene School District 4J Board of Directors to order. It's Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 at 5:32. We have all 7 board members in attendance. We're here virtually. We have Maya, Martina, Alicia, Gordon, Laurel, Mary, and myself, Judy. So we have a work session here first, and we have our ALMA advisory group consultants here, Monica Santana Rosen and Sylvia Flowers. And we're here to talk about incorporating the community feedback into our position description and discussing next steps of the process. So I'm going to turn our time over to Monica and Sylvia. Oops, Alicia, you have a hand up.
Yes, if my Robert's Rules of Order are correct, I would like to make a point of personal privilege. So if the board will indulge me, there will be no cake, there will be no singing, but there will be a second to say happy birthday, Judy Nguyen. We really appreciate you. We're thrilled that you're giving up your birthday evening to be with us. I'm sorry we didn't get hats, but congratulations on another birthday.
I wouldn't have recognized that point of privilege, but yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Judy. All right, so should I now take over here? Okay, so for this portion of the evening, our goal is to discuss what the changes have been to the job profile based on what Alma heard from the community and reported to you in our last conversation. And so I am just going to pull it up for us. Let's see here. Apologize, I had it open and now I don't. I don't know, Sylvia, if you have it open already there, you're able to share it quickly. If not, I'll pull it up. Thank you so much. Excellent. So, you know, wanted just to preface this conversation by saying, as you know, there's a job posting that was created early on and really represented what the ALMA team had heard in its initial one-on-one conversations with board members and many of the early discussions that we had with community members. Now that we have the full results of the survey and community conversations, we're at a great stage for the board to revisit what we're calling the job profile for the role, and this is what the board needs to vote on to approve. And we wanted to give you all the opportunity to look at the changes that the ALMA team is lifting up based on what we heard from the community, and to be able to discuss and make edits in real time based on your conversation. This then becomes the focus of our continued discussions. We're hoping for an open conversation, so really wanting to hear everyone's thoughts, questions, and the goal is to get to a place where you all feel that you are well aligned in the requirements of the role. Alma's, focus here is to get as clear in the definition of the competencies as possible, because the competencies become the foundation for your interview questions for every single part of our process. And that is one of the key ways in which we mitigate bias. So with that, Gordon, I see you have your hand raised.
I do. I have a procedural question, which is about the desired characteristics or competencies, whatever we want to say, of a superintendent. So one is, I know we have some of them, it seems to be in the what you'll bring section of the job description, but it was my understanding that separate from the job description, we were going to have a fuller list, and that would be used as the rubric for our evaluating, or one of the rubrics we would use for evaluating candidates according to criteria, which might go beyond this. So I guess that's one. And then the other is that I know in December, we we all got asked to give input into, I think not the job description, but the survey. And some of that input, but it was all just like each of us, in order to not violate public meeting laws, each of us sent something to Judy, who I think just forwarded it on to Alma. And those, we never talked about that as a group. So I think some of that stuff got added to the survey or maybe to the job description, but a lot didn't. So I both seems to me, unless I misunderstand the process, we need to agree on a set of desired characteristics that would go beyond what we have in the what you'll bring section, but also that we need to not just say, let's take the job description, which I don't think we ever voted on, and add in community input, but we also have to talk about the things that we brought up as board members in December that may not be reflected on this. And I don't know, Judy, if you could clarify that.
Yeah, so this document is intended to have all of the criteria and be all inclusive. So Sylvia, if you can scroll up to the top, it's not just what you'll bring, it's the entire, I think this has got to be a 4-page document now. So whatever the criteria is, it should be reflected here. In terms of the feedback for the survey had a completely different focus. The survey was to gather, the questions were intended to gather information from the community on the things that they felt were real strengths in the district and real opportunities for improvement. So I do think, to the extent that you know, there was something that you shared then that you feel is relevant to this job profile, you should definitely share it tonight, and we can discuss as a group and incorporate any of those things. So that's what I would say there.
I mean, as far as maybe I'm misremembering something. As far as I remember, that's the only place that we put in input to say, here's what we would like to see as desired characteristics. And in that, I think that was in, I know I have the one that I sent in, but I assume everybody else also sent one of saying, what would we want in question 5, which was the what are desired characteristics. So I would like to have that conversation and to hear of other people as well.
Yeah, so we also had one-on-one conversations with each of you to gather your desired characteristics. So again, if it's not in this document, this is the right time to bring that up. And if you want to kind of pull that list up, you definitely can pull it up and share it with us so that we can see where it goes. But this is intended to reflect all of the things that the Alma team has heard up until now.
And then, I'm sorry, this is the last thing. I have in my notes that we were going to have a rubric for evaluating.
Yes, so first we have to agree on what we're evaluating against, and then the rubric will come after that.
So the rubric will be based on everything in the job description? Is that the idea?
The rubric is based primarily, there are different rubrics for different stages in the process, but that's beyond the scope of what we need to agree on today, which is really what are the things we care about as a board? What are the characteristics that we're looking to screen for, both in terms of clarity on the responsibilities of the role and in terms of the competencies required.
And when will the, I'm sorry, this will be the last thing I ask, but it seems like the rubric, if it's a rubric that we're going to use to rank candidates, that's an important thing for us to
so we're
decide on at some point. When does that?
We're having a different conversation about screening processes and steps, and we'll be able to discuss that at that time.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right. Okay, great. So I'd love, Sylvia, if you can kind of scroll up to the top of the document. So, you know, the who we are should be very familiar with you all. It's really intended to tell the story of the district, a little bit about where you are and what makes you special. And it's the first thing candidates are going to read about 4J. So it's really just about the district there. Is there anything that anyone would like to lift up in this particular paragraph around who we are? And also, well, let's just do who we are first, and then we'll talk about what you'll do second. I don't know, Sylvia, can you zoom in? I don't think we need the comments on there. Yep. Oh, what we want to stay up at who we are. Yeah, that's great. If you can move the mouse because it's covering the words. Sorry, thanks.
So Gordon, was your hand up again for, yeah, okay, just so. I didn't know if you just hadn't put it down. So
Fair enough, fair enough. I would just like to add that we have a long tradition of school-based decision-making as part of our district description.
Great. How do others feel about that? Yeah. Laurel, was that, or are you responding to Gordon's comment?
No, but I do support that.
Okay. Just checking if anyone has a concern with adding that, and I think the place we would add it is probably right after the district's mission and before the 7-member
So
board of directors.
Judy,
Yeah.
or Monica?
yes, I think Monica might be, Monica, do you want me to call on people? Do you want to?
Oh, either way. I'm also happy if you take yourselves off mute and just jump in.
So Alicia, are you responding to that comment and then we'll come back to Laurel?
Yeah, so we're just saying we have had a long history. I'm confused about exactly, are you saying that's where we want to head? Because it's kind of been shifting away from that, so I wasn't sure, Gordon, what your thoughts were.
It's in our policy that one of the qualifications of a superintendent is commitment to school-based decision-making. So I think that's got to be included when we say, like later down when we talk about qualifications, but I also think it would make sense to put it in the description of the.
So
of the
can you
district.
repeat what you said, how you put it in there?
I said we have a long tradition of school-based decision-making.
Okay, thanks.
So anyone have a concern around that? Just go ahead and chime in when I'm sharing the screen. When we're sharing the screen, I can't always see everyone. Okay, Laurel?
Yes, so another thing we have a history in is focusing mostly on kids that go to college, and that's what I see in this paragraph. So I would love to see something about CTE, and I don't have to decide how that exactly is said, but I'd like for that to be in the beginning opening. Yeah, so it's somewhere in the under, but also it talks, then the baccalaureate doesn't need to be in the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Balance.
so up in the introductory program sentence, you're saying highly regarded as the district's robust school choice program, which includes 5K-12 international baccalaureate high school program on multiple campuses. Is that the place where we would add a statement about the district is increasing its focus on?
I would love help with this from my fellow board members because I didn't wordsmith this, but yes, seeing all of our children and not focusing on the ones that are high academic achievers.
And then I know, Sylvia, we have the wording there, post-secondary pathways and career opportunities.
Yeah, I think you all should chime in with the language that you all use around, is it ready for work, ready for career? How do you all talk about it in your district? Is it post-secondary success? Is it career pathways?
I would like in that above part where it said something about success for all students in the earlier part.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact words, but like something like, including those preparing for a career as well as those going to college, like just something to be explicit that it's about kids who are not going to college as well as everybody else. I don't know, Laurel, if you want different language, but that's what sprung to mind.
Yes, I like that.
And I think career is often what we use, so it's good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Laura, Maya. Hi, Maya.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks.
This is just a small detail, but I'm noticing that the very last sentence of that paragraph is the district also includes 5 public charter schools. That feels a little disjointed from the list of all the different schools that we have that is in the first sentence, I believe. So it just feels like it'd be a nice place to move it up, if that makes sense. Yeah, right there.
And help me with this. Are the 5 charter schools part of the other numbers, or are they separate from these 1984?
That's separate from the other numbers. They're not incorporated into those.
Okay. Perfect.
So Gordon, I just had a question while we're typing. What policy were you referring to for site-based? Actually, I'm just curious.
Sorry, it's policy CBA. That's titled Qualifications and Duties of District Superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
And it's item 6 on that policy.
Okay, great. Anything else on this opening? I really do think it's important to reflect, what you're looking for. I will say of the things added, the emphasis on school-based decision-making has a real clear implication for through the way the leader leads the district. So I think that's important for all of you, for all of us to think about when we get to the responsibilities of the role and the competencies later. So I do think that that particular distinction is one that does have implications for the role itself. Oh, thank you, Sylvia. I was trying to find that. 5 schools. Okay, great. All right, so let's move on to what you'll do. So this initial paragraph here, what you'll do, Sylvia, if you can scroll down to that paragraph. Yeah, this paragraph here is really about painting the picture of the job itself for your candidates. It's sort of like a pitch for the role before we get into the actual duties and skills required of the role. So again, I think similar to how Laurel did earlier, if there are things that feel missing or underemphasized, or like the tone of what's being worded feels different from the direction the district is facing, it's good to talk about where we are and where we want to go directionally, that you want this next leader to spearhead for you. So want to give you all the chance to have that conversation and to just review this paragraph here on its own, and let's continue that discussion. So this part that's here, that's showing on Sylvia's screen in purple or fuchsia, whatever that pretty color is. On my screen, it's green. But this is something that we took directly from the words of the community and felt was important to add here up front. Go ahead, Laurel.
I would love to see, emotional maturity kind of woven through this kind of naturally. So something more than works well with others, I guess. Like this is great, but I don't see anywhere that says, you know, a respectful relationship with, you know, staff and administration or something like that. And I'm not saying it exactly right. I think many people understand what I'm saying, but it's really important as far as what I'm looking for, and I hope others are, is that ability to connect and work well in a very real way. So if anybody has a better way to say it, that to me is, I like to see a, you know, little flecks of kind of the emotional intelligence part that we're looking for, just interwoven through all of it, because a lot of that has to be how you connect with others and what that looks like.
And are you thinking specifically up here in the what you'll do, or are you thinking throughout the what's described?
I'd like to see it throughout. Like when I read this, this is very much the dry of what you'll do, but I mean, part of what you do, and a major part of what you do, is connecting with its staff, you know, and you know, imparting that change agent ideals and what people want. And how do you impart that if you can't connect well, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
yeah.
So Laurel, oh, sorry, did I interrupt you, Monica?
That's okay, Alicia. What were you going to say?
So I was trying to gather kind of what Laurel was saying. So the ability to connect effectively with others, that's kind of where you're going with that.
It's the words you said, something effectively.
Oh, connect effectively, and you know, because that's what I'm hearing is the ability to connect. Is that kind of where you're headed, Laurel, with the emotional intelligent piece?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one of it. It's like,
So I say we get Monica or not Monica, Maya or Martina on this, those word people. But now I have your concept, I'll ponder it. Thanks.
Yeah, so so here's what the intention is behind the job profile itself. It's really done in two component parts. One is what the core day-to-day responsibilities are, and then the other is the skills that you need in order to carry out those responsibilities successfully. And so here what we've done, and we want them to be distinct. So we're using these to assess candidates. And so we can't have overlap. I understand what you're saying around the tone of it. So we want to make sure we strike the right tone, but we don't want to have certain skill sets or responsibilities into each and every area such that we can't really tease them apart when we're assessing them. So what we did, Laurel, was we have a whole responsibility here called partner with and foster a trusting collaborative relationship with the board and the community. And that's where we're really trying to reflect what you're saying here. And then we also have a competency called authentic relationship builder and courageous communicator. And that's where we're trying to encapsulate the things that you're describing in one solid place. And so that we would have a whole process just around what you're describing and really looking for those things. So we want to make sure that these sections are really getting you what you're looking for.
I think I understand what you're saying. But it is, I mean, when in the section of what you'll do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's this section here.
Like top, this is the beginning of it, right? Before those things.
Okay, so should we move that up to the top?
I can't, like, this is moving a lot, so.
Sorry, I'm on my own. I can't, I gave up driving rights to Sylvia, so I just moved it up to be the first thing. Maybe I misunderstood what you were saying. And so can we
Um,
look at what's described there and see if you're seeing what you're talking about
You're
reflected?
saying what I'm talking about is a skill.
I'm saying we put it in both places. It's actually really prominent in this job description. So this here, there are 8 bullets that are intended to get at what you're describing in the responsibilities. And then we have a whole nother section on the skills to be able to do this well. So what I'd love to do is go back up to
Oh my God.
the partner piece, Sylvia,
Mhm.
right there.
Yeah.
And
So there's, I think what Monica's saying, there's the what you do, what is the job of this person? And then the how you do it are the skills, some of them are soft skills that you bring in order to deliver on the what.
right,
So for example, being a relationship builder, an authentic communicator, that actually crosses much of the what. So in order to establish the vision, in order to promote innovation, in order to lead and develop a strong workforce, you need these skills to be able to do that. Skills being the authentic relationship building, the demonstrated educational leadership, being an advocate for equity, anti-racism, and inclusion. I don't know if that's helpful, but there's like, that's how we think about the two components.
yeah, so I'd say, Laura, why don't we look real quickly at just the responsibility first?
I
And then
see
we
that
can,
paragraph again. I haven't seen it again.
th-
You were
this,
looking at
the partner, the top one or the,
it too. Yeah.
So can I just ask a question while Laura's looking at it? Because the way
Yeah.
I read this is that those what's under what you'll do are really, really elevating in a very descriptive way what you'll do. So that whole area about partner with and foster a trusting collaborative relationship is really part of the what. It's just gotten really described, correct? Like
that's
what
right.
you do. And it comes in twice, which I thought was a really strong part of this description. So I want to be sure those words reflect what you're thinking, Laurel, if they really describe what you were trying to also say.
Well, when I see a heading paragraph and you put it out, it's supposed to be kind of really top, and please stop me if I'm wrong, kind of allude to what's coming next, right? And all the bullet points, it won't cover everything. And I didn't see the emotional intelligence part of it. It's very much, this is what you'll, this. And that's something that a lot of times I see that it's not missed here, and I appreciate that, absolutely. But I just would love, and it doesn't even have to be a full sentence, but something that just really talks about, like how Alicia says, to be able to, a leader that can connect.
Yeah, we do. We do. Let me look up some emotional intelligence competency descriptors, and I agree with you, Laurel. It's not there. So let me see if I can find one and drop it in there while we're talking.
Thank you.
Judy, you had your hand raised.
Well, I just was going to say that I was actually doing that because I see now what Laurel's saying. So even the heading you have, so we have the one you added, we're seeking a qualified change agent with a proven track record and a leader who can partner and foster trusting and collaborative relationships. Sort of that bolded bullet with all the points under it sort of summarizes it.
Yeah.
But
so the bolded words are like, they're like the headlines. And so the way to think about it is, if you only read the headlines, would you kind of get the spirit of what the board is looking for? And then what's underneath are how you define what belongs to that headline. Does that make sense? Okay. I saw Maya, you were waiting to jump in there.
I was going to say that I guess for me that now I'm seeing you typing in self-awareness, which feels like a really important word. For me, the concept of emotional intelligence, I guess the word that feels more comfortable for me would be something like emotional literacy, because I want them to be really well tuned into all the different mechanisms by which people connect emotionally. But I want to emphasize also just to make sure I understand. So that part is further down though, under the how, right? Like we're still not done with, this is the what they will do and the how comes later. So that concept of emotional intelligence or literacy or whatever word we choose to use, that's not in this part of the document for a reason. I also just want to emphasize personally that seeing that brought up to the very top feels really important. And it feels, I know that they're not listed in order of priority or importance, but our brains can't help but do that sometimes, even without a number 1 and a number 2. So I really appreciate that being brought up, because it feels like the setting stone for all the other stuff that falls underneath it. The rest of it can't be done well until that part is put into place. So
that I totally agree, Maya. Thank you for those comments. And we did the same thing with Advocate for Equity, Anti-Racism and Inclusion for similar reasons. I wanted Sylvia, and I apologize if people are getting a little seasick with the scrolling, but Sylvia, if you could scroll to the bottom, I added in a competency that's just about emotional intelligence. And I wanted everyone to just take a look at what's there, Laurel, to tell us if this is what you were thinking about around emotion, all the way at the bottom, Sylvia. There it is. If this is what you were thinking about, and we could either add this as its own competency, or we could take a couple bullets from this and bring it into, the communications, relationship building.
There's one word that I would really love to see added somewhere in this that I'm not sure. When I was reading through it, I kept looking for it and I didn't see it. And I would really love the word compassion to be added to it. Right now we have some major mental health challenges, both amongst our students and our staff, and then our families that are connected to both students and staff. So lead with compassion. There we go. I'm happy with that. I appreciate that.
I have to think through where is the best place? It's funny, we were talking about the word compassion.
I would like that in that paragraph up where Laurel was mentioning that, the connect with compassion or lead with compassion. I just think that word needs to be really emphasized always, but particularly in this historical moment.
I like it. Yeah. Thank you. Gordon?
I would like to add, this could go either in the partnership section or in the workforce section, but I think we have to be more explicit about wanting to have a positive and collaborative relationship with staff. And I think that, going forward, that's one of the key things to make to do right by the kids. So I would like to say one of the things that somebody will need to do, the language I have is building effective partnerships with teachers, classified staff, and school administrators, and working to improve the morale and retention of educators.
Teachers, classified staff, and
school administrators, or I could say just say administrators. I mean, I'm assuming.
And working. Finish that sentence.
To improve the morale and retention of educators. And then I also.
Gordon, would that go under lead and develop a strong workforce and build a positive work culture?
I was saying it could go there, or it could be in the partnership section, but yeah, it's fine. I'm fine with it going in either place. And then I'm not sure where to put this, but I feel like it's such a big thing that it would be good to have something specifically about mental health. And that what I wrote is that one of the things we want someone to do is improve students' mental health and decrease the amount of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and other stress-related problems experienced by 4J students. So I wasn't sure where that, like, I didn't see an obvious place to put that, but it feels like such a big thing that we're facing, that it would be good to name it as one of the priorities.
I think it's part of the mission for aligned academic and non-academic programming.
Where is that?
I agree that needs its own bullet point.
Yeah.
It-
Okay.
It's not just something that this district is dealing with, but we are 50th in the United States for our children's mental health, and showing, I think it kind of shows somebody who also wants to work hard on that in a foundational way. This would be a good place for them to be.
Mhm.
Honestly, I feel like we need to include staff in that. I don't think that our staff can support our students if they're struggling with mental health issues themselves. And I think a lot of mental health issues, if we're talking things like anxiety, etc., are being exacerbated by workplace stressors.
Absolutely.
Yep. So Gordon, can you wasn't typing fast enough there. Improve students' mental health and decrease the amount of anxiety stressors, was it?
What I had, but I would totally support Maya's thing about staff. I wrote about students, decrease the amount of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and other stress-related problems experienced by 4J students. I guess we'd say students and staff, or whatever you're suggesting, Maya.
Yeah, I think the staff piece goes down with the work culture piece, and I think it connects to your statement about working to improve the morale of educators. So, and you said something else. You said morale and something, and I missed it.
Retention.
Thank you. So I think there's something in here about mental health of staff. Oh, yes, I see Sylvia. Create the working conditions for staff to collaborate, feel supported, and do their best work. So I think it's probably somewhere in this bullet.
Maya, you have suggestion for how to put that in?
Looks like Monica did it perfectly.
That work? Okay.
That
Okay.
works for me.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I'd like to go back down to Laurel's point about emotional intelligence. And if we can go down to those 6 bullets there, I'm wondering, Laurel, does this encapsulate what you were thinking of?
I mean, this is great. I'm probably thinking too globally right now, so you can feel free to stop me, but I also know people can interview really well and behave as if I got all this, and it
Yeah. So we're gonna have a whole nother conversation about that,
yeah.
about how we screen for it. But what we want to know right now is, are we reflecting what we want, what we're looking for, what we prioritize? And some of these might already be in the job description. It's very possible. But I did want to just see, is this the kind of stuff that was occurring to you when you were thinking emotional intelligence?
Yeah, it's in a lot of it. There's I'm not, again, sorry, I'm not sure how to say it. A part that comes up over and over, and I also deal with it as a mom, is the with a kid in classes, is just how the entire kind of system seems to be built right now to break a child down and show them what they're just not good at, and I know, and so when I and I know we have the change agent and all that in there and other places, but there's a part in this where and I think maybe it's the compassion part that Maya brought up, but I went to school here and I don't remember, even though everything wasn't easy when I went to school here because of racism and such, I don't remember that being part of who we were. You know, that wasn't, and it's so what we are now. So I would love, and there you go. It's like when I tell the bartender, what should I drink? And they're like, it's not my job to tell you what you should drink. So sorry, Monica, but it's really like that big part where the awareness and want to change what's not working, and it's more of the awareness part. That's the EQ.
Yeah.
And you have it mentioned here in other places, but that's a big thing that I hear parents talk about over and over, and that is also a huge part of our mental health problems in school as well. Like when my son tells me he's an idiot, and I'm just like, that's nothing. Yeah, it's not true.
Yeah, okay. So I'm thinking here where this belongs, where that concept belongs. And it's interesting. I do think in the what you'll do, that's what we attempted to add there, you know, trying new things, questioning policies that aren't working for students. And I think it's again going to be in the academic and non-academic programming. It might be this third bullet that we added, Laurel. I like how you said the awareness and want to change what's not working for students.
Could we use something about like the whole child, like prioritize the whole child or the whole person, if that makes sense?
So we added this based on community feedback. So focus on whole student support, including mental health and school safety, but then we're more specific about mental health in the next bullet now. I'm thinking about what you're saying. It sounds like you're describing, so I think it sounds like, Laurel, what we should describe is the environment you want students to experience. So kind of flipping that statement on its head a little bit instead of, you know, the system design, you know, to build a system that's designed to, right, where students are experiencing, students are, you know, what's the opposite of what you were describing? Is it students feel heard, valued, listened to? Is it students feel empowered, successful, students believe in themselves?
I think you hit it with environment. I think that's really that, but it's also, it's students and staff, because, you know, staff being pressured to do certain in order, and then the students pressured, and of course I'm talking specifically about what I know and see, but I have many others that tell me these stories of what they're facing and how you know, the absolute frustration in the system.
Laurel, is it environment or is it culture?
Ooh, both. Ooh, yes.
I like environment because environment is about the space in which they're learning, where culture is, I mean, I do think culture we can talk about in the lead and develop a strong workforce and build a positive work culture. We can describe it there too.
But I mean a learning culture, like the environment and culture being intertwined to make it, environment sometimes just comes across really specifically, especially in an educational context, as the physical space in which one is doing that learning.
Okay, so let's continue on this path. I'd love to get other voices in the room here. What is the learning environment and culture that board members are hoping students are experiencing? Martina, Alicia, Mary Judy, what are your thoughts on that?
I would say the words that come to mind are, and by the way, you know, I'm not a wordsmither, but are acceptance and support, and obviously inclusion. I'm just trying to think of, you know, obviously, I don't know, caring. These are just some words. I wouldn't put them in sentences, but maybe to get us started.
Yep. Thank you. What about others? Martina?
Yeah, I mean, I both have too many thoughts and not enough thoughts, if you know what I mean. And I struggle a little bit with this because there's a lot of ways to talk about what we want to see in our district, and you know, we're in a document here that's how many pages long are we at?
Four. No, 5.
Four.
Well, it's okay. There's a lot that's in there that's extra. But yeah, it'll be about 4 pages. It'll be significant.
And that's I'm not saying that as a criticism, but I'm saying that, you know, I think that there's my impulse when I look at something like this, I think is maybe a little bit the inverse, which is just that like my impulse is to say fewer things and hear, you know, the ways that they articulate, because I do think that there's a degree to which I guess part of what I fear, sort of to Laurel's point about, you know, people are good at interviewing, is that sometimes there's a way in which we can give so much information that then people have a lot of data to just kind of parrot back to us. And so my impulse when I'm hiring people is kind of just to do the opposite, because I want to hear like how they articulate things, like what their language is, how they understand these things. And so this is not to say that this is wrong. It's just that my style is different. And so I'm struggling a little bit. And that's why I hadn't piped up, Monica.
No, I think that's very fair. I would never do this conversation in public because all of your candidates are getting to hear exactly what each of you care about and are looking for. However, it is what it is. And, you know, the pressure is on us to design a screening process where people can really demonstrate how they do these things in real life. And so we'll have more time on that. But what we don't want to do is go down a path and then find out that something Gordon really cares about, you know, Laurel really disagrees with, you know, or something like site-based decision-making is an interesting comment. We started with that, and the kind of leader that's really focused on site-based decision-making might require different skill set than someone who's really trying to transform a culture in every single school where students are experiencing something they're not experiencing today. And how you do that, right? I'm not saying they're at odds with each other, but I'm saying we kind of need to see what it all is and make sure that everyone agrees with what's on the 4 pages, that there's nothing on here that you say, well, I kind of stayed quiet because I didn't want to be controversial, but I actually don't agree with that. And if a candidate is really strong on that point, I'm probably going to stand against them. We need to clarify that now, because these are almost marching orders as we're out there talking to candidates and screening candidates for you. So we don't mind the extra detail, so long as everyone agrees with what's on the page. And we're pretty confident in the screening process to get you past like how people talk about things, you know, and into like we'll talk about it later. So
Yeah,
yes.
no, I really appreciate that explanation, and thank you for adding that in. I really do think that seems like an important goal, and really that's just to articulate why I'm kind of sitting back a little bit more on this, because this is a hard to articulate set of qualifications.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I do want to, I do think this is an interesting direction that we've taken here around what is the environment and culture that students, what is it that students experience in their learning environment and culture. I know each of you, and during our retreat, each of you talked a lot about what you wanted to make possible for all students. So I feel like this is a great launching point for describing something that each of you really, really believes in. So yeah, there's a first attempt there. We'll come back to others to see in a minute, but Gordon, did you want to jump in on this particular bullet?
I did, yeah, and I'm support everything that's there, and I also I often feel, I think the way Martina said, is like you can put a lot of things in writing and then you can't really tell when you interview somebody if it's real or if it's fluff.
Mm-hmm.
But with that caveat, I would like to say something that we also want, like not just the support stuff, but that we want to support teaching that sparks curiosity, that strengthens self-confidence, that conveys a pleasure in learning, because I feel like it's too easy to just say, oh, we just want to make sure everybody's at grade level, reading at grade level by third grade, or we have like just the mathematical things. And I think I think we all want that, like kids to be curious about the world and feel confident as learners and take pleasure in learning, in addition to like, okay, I passed the test. So I would like to say something like that, unless everybody else thinks that's wrong.
So you said, say that again.
I said, and what I said is support teaching that sparks curiosity, strengthens self-confidence, and conveys a pleasure in learning. But if somebody
Can I
wants
say
to,
joy instead of pleasure?
sure, all the better.
Sparks curiosity, inspires self-confidence.
I said strengthens self-confidence.
Sorry. Strengthens self-confidence and
I said conveys a joy in learning. Maybe there's a better word than conveys. I don't know.
Yeah. Alicia?
Thanks. So are we gonna, this is hard because we're wordsmithing and people are putting things in and we're not debating them. We're kind of going, okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
And you have on 3 occasions now brought up site-based decision-making. I don't agree with having that in there. It's great that it's in a policy. I don't have the ability to run and look it up and see what it says exactly. But we as a board haven't really said that's where we're headed. And as a board member for the past 5 years, 6 years, we've really talked about the importance of doing more of the work centrally, particularly as it relates to equity. I know people may not agree with that, but that's where we are as a board. So I feel like we're making a board decision as we hire a superintendent that we haven't had as a board conversation. So if we want to have that as a conversation, and if the board has changed its direction, and this board has changed its direction, then I think we need that before we just put it in, because I think it has a lot of power. And like you said, you're going to recruit somebody very different. And so that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Laurel?
I see it as something really important to add, because a lot of, in my studying about this, is that you can attract really great leaders by letting them know things like this. And so saying that you're going to do everything and it's all going to be central and there's going to be all this, but instead of empowering, you know, what really the best leadership as far as I've ever seen in all the work that I've done is when you trust the professionals you hire to do the work. And you hire good professionals to do the work and hold them accountable when they don't. So I see it as something great to put in here because it invites more people to go, oh, that's not, I like that. So that's what excites me about that. So I don't think it means that we've made all the decisions as a board. I think it does say we, and then maybe there's another way to say it, you know, that you're, I know, Judy, did you have something on this? But I think it has a way to kind of invite more people to the party, and we want more people to come to the party, right? So that's what my thought about it.
Gordon, is that all right with Judy? Jump in and respond?
Sure, you can go ahead. I'll go after you, Judy.
Yeah. You know, I really appreciate, and I did get a chance to look it up and I saw it was in the policy. And, you know, I would venture to say if we all talked about what site-based management meant, we'd all have some different description. But my approach usually would be to make sure if this is important to us, and I probably should, we would ask a question like something like, how would you approach, what's the balance between what central office and school buildings and that kind of thing. And I think you learn a lot more from someone rather than throwing out a phrase that might mean something different to someone else. Because really you want, and we might learn some really different ideas and how things work maybe in other districts. So if we want to learn that about someone, which it sounds like we very much do, I would be sure to ask a question like that rather than put something in that might mean something different to each one of the 7 of us.
So I was thinking similarly that I think what we're trying to, you know, I feel like what Laurel was describing is probably pretty well aligned with what a lot of board members are looking for. And if we can maybe describe what we mean by site-based decision-making rather than put that term in there, I think it would be better and more directive to the candidates. And I'm looking up because I have had other roles that had similar thinking behind it to see if I can find that for us while we're having this conversation similar to the emotional intelligence. So I'll be looking for that. Go ahead, Gordon.
So I don't know if people see chat, but I put the text of the policy in the chat. I guess I disagree with your characterization of where the board has been at, Alicia. And this policy was last revised and readopted in 2017. I don't think, I certainly am not talking about, and I don't think anybody who talks about site-based decision-making is talking about having different standards of equity. I think there's obviously like some things like that, and there's things that we have state mandates about that have to be every place in the district. But it's in our policy. Unless we as a board are gonna, I don't even know what the process is to change policy, but unless we as a board are gonna go through that process and decide to change the policy, our policy says commitment to school-based decision-making is one of the qualifications that a superintendent shall have. So I think we have to, either we undo the policy, which I certainly wouldn't support, or we have to be straightforward about that, both in that that's part of who we are and that's part of what we want. And of course, there's a lot of different things that could mean, and people may mean different things, but you know, as you noted, Monica, it's also something, you know, something that's discussed a lot among educators and in educational policy. And I think people have a rough idea of what it means, even though it may mean, you know, slightly different things in different situations. But I don't think this is something that we can vote on unless we undo policy. We can't say, oh, we have policy, but we don't really like that policy. That's our policy in black and white.
Yeah, so I think there are 2 different points being made here on this point, on this particular issue. And I think that the phrase that's in the who we are is we have a long tradition of school-based decision-making. And I think on its own, that sentence is a little hard to interpret as a candidate. What does that mean? And why is it placed there in that opening paragraph? What I hear Judy saying, what I heard Laurel describing, to me feels like a better way to name the thing you're talking about in a way that candidates can understand and be ready to respond to. So I think it would be better, instead of having that sentence up there, to have something more in the, and it probably is in the partner with and foster a trusting collaborative relationship. I mean, maybe it's adding schools in there. It could also be in, I think that's where it belongs, actually. And it's about what you think, how you think a superintendent supports effective site-based decisions or school-based decisions. And so even the phrase itself, right, that we support school-based decisions, you know, I feel like what Laurel said, and I didn't write down exactly what she said, more encapsulated what I suspect most of the board would really agree to. So I don't know, Laurel, if you remember, if you could repeat it for us.
I'll wait.
Also, I think Maya has something to say about this. What I remember myself saying is
I know.
that good leadership means trusting the professionals that you have hired for the positions. So
you talked about sort of you talked about partnering and like really like working in partnership with schools. So a lot of times that comes up in this idea of partnering. Okay, here's how I see it. And you all tell me if I'm describing this correctly or incorrectly. You know, the superintendent is working with the board to clarify the vision, the goals, strategy, direction that the district is heading. Let's take, for example, this point about if we believe that the system is designed to break, you know, students' confidence, right? Let's just take that statement in and of itself. Then if we say that that's true and that the superintendent's job is to shift the culture in every school, not to do that, right? Then the way that they do that needs to be in partnership with schools, right? We have to sit down with schools and say, you know, here's the direction the board is saying. Can we talk about why this occurs in your schools today? Can we you know, discuss how we would design something that really starts to shift some of these qualities in a way that you believe and can get behind as well. So there's this fine line between setting expectation, but also co-constructing the direction, right, with the people in the schools who know best what their particular schools and climate and community need. So I don't know if I'm getting any closer to it, but I feel like the term school-based decision-making lends itself to, you know, superintendent and central office get out of the way of what's happening in schools. And I don't think that's what you're saying. I don't think that's what Laurel was describing earlier. I think what you're saying is we can't be too top down and mandating things that schools have no say in what it is or how it looks in their buildings.
Well, I would say, I mean, I don't think anybody who supports school-based decision-making thinks superintendent get out of the way. I mean, I think it's clear in our job description that we have an extremely big role of leadership for superintendent and for central staff. I mean, personally, I believe that things like curiosity and self-confidence and all that kind of stuff get killed by central, everybody do the same thing, kind of central command and control schools, which is a lot of what many school districts in the country are moving towards. And so I agree with what you said, that if we say, okay, we want kids to have self-confidence, and that's a goal we have for all kids. And we understand that that's going to look different in different schools and different places. And we want teachers and principals to be empowered to figure out what's the right way to do that for their kids. But regardless of, so I guess that's what I think it means. I certainly don't think it means superintendents get out of the way, but the bottom line is, I think this has to be in the what you'll bring section, because it's in our policy that a superintendent shall have this skill and ability. And I would put it in the first paragraph just because I think it's being honest about what, not all districts have this as policy. We do have this as policy. And I think it's important to use those words. And if somebody, I can't imagine somebody would say, does that mean you want a weak superintendent who's not really going to be a leader? I think that is answered by a million things we say all over this job description and other places. And certainly we could answer that in question.
Go ahead, Maya.
I guess I would say one other thing, which is, I tell me if I'm misreading this, but I get the sense sometimes that you at Alma are uncomfortable or opposed to this idea. And I think that, I don't know if that's true. I get that sense, and I hope that you would that Alma's role is just facilitating whatever the views of the board are and not trying to steer us in one policy direction or another.
So yeah, I just attempted to describe what I thought the whole board could get behind, so that I wasn't providing necessarily my opinion. I do think the term, what I shared is that the term school-based decision-making can be interpreted in extreme ways by candidates. So I'd rather you define it in a way that everyone on the board is comfortable with, rather than use a term that even members of the board aren't sure they agree with what it means. So my issue is with the term, it's not with what you're looking for. So I think you said you agreed with how I described it. And I would rather have that be the very first bullet there and how you partner and describe it, rather than give it a term that may mean different things to different people.
Well,
So that's my position, and it's about process. It's not about school management philosophy at all.
I appreciate that. I think it's important to keep the term. I'd be happy to say, one of the things you need to bring is commitment to school-based decision-making, and then some phrase, say like, such as, kind of like describing what we mean by that.
Yep. That makes sense to me. What were some of the things that I've said that others have said that feel like the description of school-based decision-making? Go ahead, Maya.
So I really appreciate this component of our policy, and seeing that it was revised or readopted 4.5 years ago feels pretty compelling, because I assume people put time and thought into it. And 4J does have a long history of that, but there has been moments where we move away from that. To me, I appreciate the word partnership, but the word I'm missing in all of this conversation is the word balance. And that feels like a crucial component to this. So something about, because, and I say that because the question of equity, and we just passed a racial harassment policy, and a big component of that was making sure that it was implemented across the district in a way that looked similarly anywhere a student might find themselves. So as someone who finds myself on the side of really wanting to support school-based decision-making, whatever the language we choose to use, I'm also recognizing that really where we are, because I'm hearing Alicia, who was one of the people on the board, Alicia, Judy, who was a brand new board member, and Mary were the only ones around to re-adopt that policy. I'm hoping that maybe we can use some sort of like a balance between centralized and school-based decision-making, something that shows that both are valuable, but that 4J does have, because Gordon's right, in other parts of the country, this is being quashed and like moved away from in a really dramatic way. And it affects all the things that we've been talking about in terms of like teacher morale and environment for students. And those things are often very site-based. So I just I think that adding the explanation, but also including that word balance, because I think when it becomes dangerous is when we become committed to one to the extreme of the other. But I do think that school-based decision-making is an important component of our district culture historically and currently, not at the exclusion of really important systematizing that is also undergone and undergoing currently.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was muted there. Alicia, and then Mary, and then Judy.
So I think what we're experiencing right now with this discussion is exactly why I'm nervous about putting just the words up there, because we haven't had the chance as a board to really talk about what do we as this board, this new board, mean by site-based decision making. I'm guessing Gordon has a different opinion than I have, and then maybe Maya has or Judy has. And so I think that's what's hard is when you put that word in and then we try to judge someone with all these different beliefs. Because I think, making sure that we have partnerships with, shall we say, administration. I was going to say downtown, but I know they don't like it, with administrations and the schools to get the best for our students is absolutely crucial. Does it mean the old way we used to talk about site-based decision-making 15, 20 years ago? I don't know, maybe it does to some people. So my appreciation is what you did, Monica, which was describe it. I am fine leaving site-based, but understanding that we have got to agree on what does that mean. And I think that will be actually good, and it may take quite a while, given that we have different opinions on, I believe, different opinions on what it means. But that would be the way I would want to leave it in, because I do think you recruit for a certain type of person with a certain kind of excitement about that. And so you have to be as clear as possible. I also really want to support the way Judy put that out, which was to ask in the questions, because I think we might get a better understanding and would have a more opportunity as a board to have more discussion and find what we're really looking for with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Alicia. Go ahead, Mary, and then Judy, and then Gordon.
Well, I've been reluctant to say anything because it seems like we're sort of going down rabbit holes, and I would point out that it's 6:45 and I don't think we've gotten through the first page of this, but it feels a little bit like analysis paralysis that we're going through and trying to word the exact, use the exact perfect words in this document when we're going to have a lot of discretion as we look at these candidates, and there's going to be lots of vetting of the candidates. So I thought the draft, with a few suggestions for improvements here or there, was fine actually. So I wasn't going to spend a lot of time talking about this tonight. But to the point about site-based management, the policy says that it's under the qualifications for the superintendent. It says the superintendent shall have a commitment to it, not shall do it. So that just to me says that it's a part of how 4J is evolving and doing business, and that that person should have some idea about what that means and be able to work with that. And I would just point out that because of the centralized decision-making that we've implemented over the last 10 years away from site-based management, that's how we've managed to put music and PE in all our elementary schools. Because before, the schools that could afford it would fundraise and they would have a music teacher, the more affluent schools, and the schools that couldn't afford it, whose parents didn't have that extra money, didn't have those extra things for their kids. So that decision was centralized, and that's why we have music and PE in all our elementary schools. So I think in terms of equity, to Alicia's point, it's been a good thing, and it's an evolving thing. And certainly we need to have a discussion about this. And I don't think the job description and the job description discussion is where we hammer out policy. And I just feel like, there's a nod to it, but we don't need to go down this rabbit hole and try to explain what it is and explain what it needs. We're going to, as I said, we're going to vet these candidates a lot, and we're going to find out, if this person is a fit or not a fit for us. So I'm going to leave it there. It's like I said, it's almost 6:50. There's a couple words I'd like to see change, but if we don't get to it tonight, then I can live with it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mary. And I totally appreciate just calling out that we might be getting into a bit of a rabbit hole. I know we're still on page 1, but we actually have talked through a lot of the different things on here. I did forget though at the start, Judy, how much time did we intend to allot for this part of the conversation?
An hour. And
Okay.
We're over already, so.
Oh, we're over an hour already. Okay.
Yeah, we're
fair
at
enough.
6:45, so
Okay.
because we're going to have the executive session, then we have to vote on these, so.
Yep, got it. Okay, great.
Fine.
So what I would like to do is to just get the group's input on what it is that we're looking for in terms of the way the superintendent is partnering with schools. Can we, I did pull this this from a different job description. You know, I think I'm just putting some concepts here. I do think it's important to define this. So I don't know if anyone wants to describe what it means to them. I can start writing this concept down. And then
So
we can-
Monica, that's why I had my hand up, because I just wanted to say that, first of all, I like those words, but to me, Maya was on the right track. If we're going to write something, it should be balancing that when individual, I like what you have here. I was going to say that knowing that stakeholders or individuals with the most at stake should have a say in decisions, with the goal, the goal we don't want to give up, which is equity across the entire school district. That's where, to me, the balance has got to come in.
Judy,
and-
would it make sense to change a say in the say before to influence decisions?
That's great.
Because then it uses language that says that the say will be received genuinely.
Yep. And you know, all that balancing, I think what we're saying is we don't want to use we don't want to lose the equity that we've gained district wide. I don't think anyone on this board wants to do that. So that, to me, is the balance.
Okay. I'm just playing with it for a minute, and then we can move on. I don't know, something about the unique context of each school. Something Gordon was saying about the unique context of each school earlier.
That really is important, because equity, sometimes when we get too caught up in not allowing for school-based decision-making, we end up misdefining equity under the umbrella of equality. And so I think it's really important that we recognize we have very different school communities with very different needs that sometimes overlap, but not always. So I really appreciate the adding of the unique context component.
Mary, was your hand still raised? No, okay. Gordon, were you? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think this is the right direction to go, and I'm not sure we're so far apart, despite what Alicia said. I have a specific thing, but first I just want to say in general, I want to get somebody who is excited about working in partnership with educators and principals and other people. And I know that there are people in this and every job market who feel like, I want to come in and make my mark, and I'm going to totally change this district to be whatever. And that's not what I want, somebody who wants to remake something just in their own image. And so my idea, so here's the language that I would like to add is, and maybe it's not exactly right, respect educators and school leadership's expertise in crafting specific ways of achieving district-wide goals with their own students and work in partnership with them toward those goals. Like what I'm trying to say is we set, I mean, for many, many things, we set district-wide goals, maybe for everything, we set district-wide goals, and then we want to be aware that there's more than one way to work towards those goals, and that among the people who know the best how to do that are the people who are working every day with those kids. And that certainly it has nothing to do with funding. Nobody's talking about site-based funding, but that there should be that. That's what I was thinking, Maya, when you were talking about balance, that it's a balance between, the drive of central administrators and respecting the fact that school-based leaders and educators know something about their kids that nobody else knows, to figure out how we should try to achieve the district-wide goals.
Can you say the second half there? Strategic ways to implement district-wide goals. Oh, yeah, I think you're muted. You got muted. Gordon?
After 2 years, you'd think.
I did it like 5 times today and 3 times during this meeting. So to implement district-wide goals or no.
So what I had is respect educators and school leaders' expertise in crafting specific ways of achieving district-wide goals with their particular students.
Wait, sorry. Specific ways of achieving
district-wide goals.
District-wide goals. Yep.
With their particular students.
Yeah.
And work in partnership with them toward those goals. I mean, those words may not be exactly right, but that's the idea I'd like to get at.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that is why I do think in general, directionally, I think what we're talking about here, my impression is that most, if not all, of the board would agree with this directionally. I'm wondering, seeing all this here, obviously it needs some consolidation, but is there anything that's described here under supporting school-based decision-making that would give anyone pause on the board? And we can capture this in a pithy bullet for sure, but I feel like Gordon got us pretty close with that last one. But just checking, is there anyone who disagrees with anything that's described there? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, I think we can, if we're all in agreement, we can capture what this bullet is saying here. And then I think what we would do is put up here to kind of described further below. And I think that works. And I think it addresses the concerns that were raised by the group. So thank you. And thank you, Alicia, for putting that out there and allowing us to get clear on something that's really important. Yeah, Maya.
I have a really specific, very clear question. I hope isn't opening a can of worms at this late hour. There's a sentence in there about there's a preference for or experience as a superintendent is preferred. My question is, in terms of the initial round of eliminating candidates who aren't qualified, would that lead Alma to take somebody out of the pile, or is that word preferred protecting enough that you would still consider somebody who's been an assistant superintendent or a director of a certain level of instruction or something like that?
Yeah, and if that's not a criteria for you, we can just take it out too.
It's not a criteria for me. I would be happy to remove it, but I'm not sure.
It is a criteria for me, and I was very clear. that
Okay.
I'm really only interested in people that have been a superintendent. Our district is too large to do an OJT. So I'm fine with preferred, but I'm not fine taking it out.
Okay, Gordon?
Thanks. Are we talking about the what you'll bring section now?
Yeah, that's right.
So first of all, I guess I also feel like, I mean, maybe like Maya, which is I would not like to I guess ultimately we'll evaluate the candidates, but
Yeah.
I don't want to discourage candidates who have been assistant superintendent or even in some cases principal or division director. I don't know how every school district is. So I just think where he says, I don't know, I guess so I would take it out, or if there's some way to weaken it. But I also had a couple of other things that I would like to put in this section.
Okay.
One is, and all of this I'm trying to say, like you said here, a clear track record, because everybody's going to say whatever we tell them we want them to say. But a clear track record of reducing the amount of time spent on standardized testing, and then a clear track record of working collaboratively with teachers classified and school administrators. And we might not be I think we're in agreement on those, but I won't guess at this point to speak for everybody else.
And what was the word you used, collaborating?
Of working collaboratively with teachers classified and school administrators. And the first one was on standardized testing.
Yeah, Mary, Laurel, Judy?
Well, I think this is another case of trying to, have a board policy debate in a job description. It just doesn't make sense to me. This is a board discussion ongoing with regard to standardized testing, and putting it in the job description, I think is some way disingenuous. And I feel like the board needs to have that conversation to the point of, with the point of school-based decision-making. And since we're going to be wordsmithing again, I would like to see us, there's a section about ableism and race and religion and so forth, but there's nothing about heterosexual normalism, or whatever you want to call that, in that section. I can't see it because I can't flip through the document. So when we come back to other little word changes, I'd like to throw that out there for right now.
Yeah, let me find that. Let's find that real quick. Do
Can't
you remember where in the job description that was?
I don't have it in front of me, and I can't look at the paper. So
I just saw LGBTQ on section.
No, I know what she's talking about, ableism, otherism.
yeah, that is in that section. It's in two different sections. So,
Unchecked. We came from the.
but we don't
find it.
need to go down that. We don't need to deal with it now. Just like put it
No,
in the
that's an
parking
easy,
lot.
that's easy to fix. So let me see if I can find it.
So while you're looking, Monica and
Yeah.
group, we noticed our board meeting at 7 o'clock. So it's now 7 o'clock. So I think we have to maybe we could finish this discussion in our board meeting, but it's been noticed to the public, and I think we need to adjourn the work session. And that means the executive session can't happen in between. So I'm just doing a time check, and I don't know, because our consultants here are in a different time zone. So I don't know if you can hang in with us to finish this conversation during our open board meeting. And then we could talk about having the executive session possibly at a different time. I don't know the timing on that for you all.
Yeah, I don't know if other, so thank you for that. We're at 7 o'clock right now. I do think it would be good if there's any remaining feedback around the job description. Can people email that to me directly? And then we can, see about incorporating it before the board votes on the profile later in open session if possible. So I'm wondering if we can do that. I do. So we did add that. I didn't know if if that captured it for you, Mary, heteronormative
Yes,
representative relationships, perfect.
I think it should be heteronormativity to just align with the other words.
Okay,
So it's a noun instead of an adjective.
yep. Got it. Okay, so I'm wondering if everyone's okay, if there are additional comments, that anything else you noticed in the wording that you want? Yeah, Mary?
well, are we going to vote on this version or are you going to clean it up? Because I know we're supposed to vote
Gotta
on.
clean it up. Yeah, we gotta clean it up.
Okay, are we voting on
And so
tonight?
we'll be working on that. Yeah,
We're
so
voting on-
we'll be working on it during the closed
Okay.
session. And then we'll
Okay.
have a revised version for voting in open session later.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Let me just clarify, our open, I know you're patiently waiting, Laurel, we're just
Okay.
clarifying logistics, so anyhow, our open session is scheduled next. I don't think we can go into executive session before it. So, and this is our big agenda item, and we don't have public comment. No one signed up and no employee groups are speaking. So we're going to open the meeting. We could talk about the process together, why you all get the feedback. So I'm just looking for some direction here.
So what do you mean by opening the meeting? I thought we're
Well,
already.
we're in work session, so I'd have to close the work session and open the board meeting.
I see. And you were saying that you noticed that the open board meeting was beginning at 7 p.m. So we're
Correct.
at time to transition to that. Okay.
Judy, can't we open the board meeting and then go into executive session and then return to the board meeting? So then the public is informed what we're doing and.
We could do that, I believe, but I don't know where we are. That doesn't give Monica and Sylvia much time to finish this up because you're leading the executive session.
No, I think we can, well, yeah, one of us can work on the refinements while the other one is leading the executive session. So that's what I thought. Honestly, I was a little confused about the sequencing of the evening. So if we're okay going into executive session and then going back into open session for voting at the end, I think we will have a revision. And if the group feels it's too far off, then we'll have to delay the vote, I think.
Yeah, I think what I'll have to do first, though, is open. I know this is, I'll open the board meeting. We'll explain to the public, as Maya said, that we're going to go into executive session and then come back to the open meeting, just because we'll have to open it to let people know, technically. And I think we can then go into executive session even while the board meeting, during the open board meeting. Unless I get a text that yes. Okay. So how about I close this and we open our regular board meeting and then tell people what's going on.
And
Yeah,
it's not the same link, right?
We have a different link, don't we?
Yes, we have it for executive session, not
Yeah.
for the board meeting. So
Yeah, so just Mary, I do see your hand raised there. Was there anything else you wanted to share? Or was that just,
We have,
okay. Laura?
I forgot to lower it. My bad.
no. I think we're 5 minutes late.
yes,
Okay.
okay. So I am going to close this work session of the 4J School Board.